Good morning. I'm introducing you to my new book. I just wrote this recently. It was just published on February, or became available on February 13th of 2024. My new book is The Role of Self and Adaptation in Learning and Development. It's also known as Chasing Excellence. My name is Daniel Rodriguez. I'm a professor of public health at LaSalle University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I have my PhD in human development from the University of Maryland, and this book is really about the developmental process, particularly as it applies to the art of learning. Learning is my passion. I enjoy learning so much that I actually enjoy the process more than the outcome. So when things are going really well within the process, I get extremely excited, and I just love it so much. So in this book, I discuss that, and I basically introduce you to this model that I've developed over the years through my studies and through my own personal experience. I learned a lot from so many great people, particularly those with whom I studied or were associated or affiliated with in any way possible. Dr. Brad Hatfield, I'd probably give the top role here because we used to have a course where we studied mental adaptation. So that's where the ideas came about for this back when I was in graduate school. Dr. Alan Wigfield, who was my mentor and also an advocate of research on the self concept. And I'd also had Stephen Porges, whose interesting models while he was at the University of Maryland really piqued my interest, maybe perhaps before too. So there's many, many more, but I'm not going to mention them all here. I do mention a lot of these individuals within the book, so you can learn about them. And of course, there's many others from whom I've gained much through my reading. But what I'll do is go over the table of contents just to show you what the book is about. I'm hoping I'll get you to be interested in it. So in the first chapter, I introduce the model. So this is a little bit of a dense chapter. This is an academic book, but it's also not an academic book. So I did my best to make it both academic and also applicable to everybody. So we have the introduction to psychoadaptation. I discuss the model. I develop it. I provide it within the context of some real world examples. After I do that, I take you through a journey, through my journey through different aspects that I've experienced in my life and apply the model to those different experiences. One of them is succeeding as a student. It's not anybody who's a professor. We spend a lot of time being a student. So I talk about what it takes to be a student. And I also discuss what it means to undergo a lot of difficulties in the process. My family was homeless during my earlier college period. So I had to go through a lot there. And then my escape from that and movement into the rest of my world is also discussed. What it means to be an expert teacher, and then also conducting research. So I'm an academic, I do teach, I conduct research, and of course I was a student. So these are areas that I have a lot of insight into. Second part of the book discusses sport. When I was in graduate school and came out of graduate school, my goal was to get into sports psychology, sport and exercise psychology. So I still have a lot of insight into that area, even though I focus more on public health right now. Maintaining an exercise regimen. Exercise is not easy for people, and clearly people don't want to always exercise or fail to live up to their whatever their resolutions are. Well, I talk about that. I discuss two sports in which I've had a great deal of experience: tennis, especially earlier, and skiing now, currently, where I'm a certified ski instructor, level 1, PSIA, and also child specialist 1, working on the level 2 right now. So I have a lot of insight into especially my difficulties I had going through it, which apply probably to many people learning to ski later in life, just like I did. In the third part of the book, I discuss a couple of issues that are important to public health right now. One is obesity, and the other is smoking and vaping. I have a lot of experience with obesity, sadly, but I've overcome them. Great. Smoking and vaping. I've never smoked or vaped. Maybe I think I tried one cigarette once, didn't really like it. I'm an asthmatic, so it made it harder. However, I do research in smoking and vaping, and still do. I've done a lot, so I have a lot of insight into that area. And then finally, what I call psychoadaptation in the modern world. So the model that I introduced is called psychoadaptation, as it's a blending of psychology and adaptation, because there's a psychological part to adaptation. I believe it's really important to the world we live in now, where there's just an overwhelming abundance of stimulation, a lot of stimuli. You look at your phone, if your phone is just peaked with stimulation opportunities, people are just caught into that. I mean, I see the effects when individuals just lock in their phones and they can't do anything else. It's crazy. We need this now. We need to be able to deal with that if we're to survive well. My suggestion would be, if you're interested in reading the book, would be to read the first chapter. Again, it's a more academic chapter, but I try to make it more mellow than just strictly academic. And then the last chapter, those two are key to get a good understanding of the model. But then within, there's so many different chapters that have what I believe is great content. For instance, in the exercise chapter, I introduced this idea of complexes, which is a Jungian concept. Carl Gustav Jung. So his work introduced me to complexes. So I detail them in here. And in a lot of these chapters, I introduce concepts. So it's worth reading all of them. However, I think that at minimum, you should read the first and the last chapter, and then pick and choose what you'd like to read from within that. So each of these chapters is, even though they're all related, they're quite autonomous. But you really need to know the model in order to read them. This book is available everywhere. It was published by, Taylor and Francis and Routledge. So you can buy it on their website if you like. There's three different versions. There's a hardback, which is quite expensive. So I'm thinking that's more like if you're a library or somebody wants hardcover books. But then the paperback is $56.95 here, and then you can get an ebook. I'm sure you can find different prices in different outlets. If you're interested, you can visit my author's page in Amazon. Certainly the book is available on Amazon as well. That's my research methods book. I have a second statistics book, which for some reason is not available. The cover's not available, but so you can take a look at the book here and find price that's suitable for you. That's all I have to say. I hope you give it a shot. You read it and tell me if you like it. My feelings won't get hurt if you don't. I just want people to see a different worldview, something that is very practical and attempts to understand humanity and human development from a realistic perspective. But I thank you for spending time with me and giving me a moment here. I appreciate it very much. Have a great day.